In 1988, crime in the United States skyrocketed overnight, increasing by a staggering 400%. To counter this, the government made a drastic decision. They walled off Manhattan Island with a massive 50-foot containment wall, transforming the once bustling metropolis into the nation's only maximum security prison. Every bridge and tunnel leading to the island was blocked, and armed guards patrolled the perimeter non-stop. Inside, however, there were no wardens or security patrols, just criminals left to fend for themselves. Liberty Island, which once stood as a symbol of freedom, now served as the headquarters of the U.S. police force overseeing the prison. Every convict sent there was sentenced for life. There was no parole, no escape, only survival. Fast forward to 1997. In the dead of night, two desperate inmates try to escape by crafting a makeshift raft and paddling towards open water. A military helicopter spots them and issues a warning to turn back. They don't listen. Moments later, the helicopter drops gas canisters, obliterating the raft and the prisoners along with it. The pilot returns to base, confirming the elimination. At Liberty Island headquarters, a heavily guarded bus arrives carrying new prisoners. Among them is Snake Plissken, a former U.S. Special Forces soldier turned criminal. Once a war hero, Snake now finds himself in chains, convicted of trying to rob the Federal Reserve. The guards march him toward security control, unaware that he would soon become their only hope. Meanwhile, at the Air Traffic Control Center, Flight Captain Rama calls Police Commissioner Bob Hawke with an urgent matter. A small jet has gone silent for the past 20 minutes. The jet in question isn't just any aircraft. It's Air Force One, the president's plane. On board, the president is en route to an international peace summit when disaster strikes. A terrorist, a member of an anti-government resistance group, hijacks the plane. Her mission? To crash Air Force One straight into Manhattan Island, condemning the president to a fate worse than death. As the plane veers off course, the president's security team scrambles. They strap him into an emergency escape pod, hand him a locked briefcase containing critical nuclear fusion data, and fasten a life monitor bracelet to his wrist. With seconds to spare, they launch the pod. The plane continues its doomed trajectory and crashes into the island's desolate ruins. Commissioner Hawke and his team spring into action, rushing to the crash site in helicopters. But when they arrive, the pod is empty. The president is nowhere to be found. A strange, unsettling figure named Romero soon appears, claiming to represent the island's prisoners. With an eerie smile, he dangles proof, the president's severed finger. He gives Hawke a grim ultimatum: leave the island immediately or suffer the consequences. With no choice, Hawke and his team retreat. Back at headquarters, the vice president demands action. But there's a problem. Police forces are forbidden from stepping inside Manhattan Island. Hawke needs another plan. He turns to the only man crazy enough and skilled enough to pull off the impossible: Snake Plissken. Hawke calls Snake into his office and lays out a deal. If Snake infiltrates Manhattan, rescues the president, and retrieves the nuclear fusion tape, he'll receive a full pardon. But there's a catch. The president must be recovered within 24 hours. Any longer, and the international summit will fail, plunging the world into chaos. Snake scoffs at the offer, but agrees reluctantly. Before he can be deployed, medical personnel inject him with what they call a booster shot. Moments later, a doctor pulls him aside and tells him the truth. He's just been injected with microscopic explosives that will rupture his arteries in exactly 24 hours. They can only be neutralized in the last 15 minutes. If he tries to escape or abandon the mission, he dies. Furious, Snake glares at Hawke and vows revenge. Now officially on the mission, Snake is strapped into a silent glider and launched from a military plane, soaring undetected over Manhattan. His landing target? The roof of the World Trade Center. With impressive skill, despite never flying a glider before, he lands smoothly. From there, he descends into the city's dark, lawless streets. Snake's first objective is to find the president's escape pod. He searches the wreckage but finds nothing useful. Tracking the life monitor signal, he follows it to an old, run-down theater. Inside, hostile prisoners attack him, but Snake, being the battle-hardened warrior he is, takes them down effortlessly. At last, he finds the source of the signal, only to discover that it's been strapped to an old man. The president is still missing. Frustrated, Snake radios Hawke with the bad news. Hawke tells him to keep searching. As he steps outside the theater, Snake senses something is off. Then he sees them, shadowy figures emerging from the manholes, lurking in the alleys. These are the Crazies, Manhattan's most feared scavengers. At night, they roam the city, looting, destroying, and attacking anyone they find. Outnumbered, Snake bolts. He ducks into an abandoned diner, where he finds a terrified woman begging him to take her with him. But before they can move, the crazies break in. The woman is dragged beneath the floor, her screams piercing the night. Snake barely has time to react before he's back on the streets, being pursued relentlessly. Just when it seems like he's trapped, a yellow taxi screeches to a halt beside him. The driver, a quirky and oddly cheerful prisoner named Cabby, shouts at him to get in. With no other option, Snake jumps inside, and they speed away. As they drive through the wasteland that was once New York City, Snake interrogates Cabby about the president. Cabby reveals that the president is being held hostage by the most powerful man in Manhattan, the Duke of New York, the island's ruthless crime lord. With this new lead, Cabby takes Snake to the New York Public Library, where an old acquaintance, Brain, resides. Brain, a former genius-turned-survivor, has all the answers Snake needs. They are greeted by Brain's girlfriend, Maggie, who leads them inside. When Snake sees Brain, he's shocked. It turns out they have a history. They once served together in the military, back when Snake was still a soldier. Wasting no time, Snake pulls out his gun and demands to know where the president is. Brain hesitates, but ultimately confesses. The president is in the hands of the Duke of New York, leader of the Gypsies, a violent gang that rules the island with an iron grip. No one dares to challenge him. He is brutal, merciless, and feared by all. Brian finally reveals the Duke's real plan for kidnapping the president. The ruthless leader doesn't just want a ransom. He wants to escape the city using the president as both a shield and a bargaining chip. His goal is to cross the heavily guarded 69th Street Bridge, and he's determined to make it happen. As Brian explains all this, the Duke suddenly shows up with his gang, demanding a blueprint of the bridge's minefields. Snake knows this is his best chance to infiltrate their hideout. Thinking quickly, he forces Brian and his girlfriend, Maggie, to take him there. To make their getaway, Snake steals a car from one of the Duke's men, and the three of them speed off into the dangerous streets. But their escape is far from smooth. Another gang, known as the Skulls, spots them and starts hurling projectiles their way. Somehow they manage to dodge the attacks and escape unharmed. They finally reach the hideout, and Snake quickly gathers intel. He learns that the president is being held in an old train car. Knowing time is running out, he comes up with a risky plan. Brian and Maggie will create a distraction, giving Snake the chance to sneak in and rescue the president. Though nervous, the couple agrees and splits up to execute the plan. Snake moves carefully through the hideout, but just as he reaches the train car, he runs into a guard. A brutal fight breaks out. Snake manages to take the guard down, but not without suffering an injury himself. Gritting his teeth, he pushes forward and finds the president tied up inside. He quickly unties him, and they start making their way out. But just as they think they are in the clear, disaster strikes. Duke's men catch them in the act and surround them. Then the ultimate betrayal is revealed. Brian and Maggie were the ones who tipped off the gang. They had alerted the Duke, ruining Snake's rescue mission. The Duke wastes no time capturing both Snake and the president, dragging them back to his lair. To humiliate and torture the president, he ties him up against a wall and uses him as target practice. One of his men, Romero, notices the president's briefcase and shoots it open. Inside, they find a mysterious cassette tape about nuclear fusion. Romero doesn't understand its importance, but he takes it anyway, slipping it into his pocket. The next morning, the Duke decides to have some fun with Snake. He throws him into a brutal fight against a giant opponent in a makeshift fighting ring. Snake, still injured from his earlier battle, struggles to keep up. The giant overpowers him at first, delivering blow after blow. But Snake, being the survivor he is, uses his quick reflexes and wits. In a surprising move, he manages to strike the giant in the head, knocking him out cold. The crowd erupts into cheers, impressed by Snake's resilience. Meanwhile, Brian and Maggie realize they need to change sides if they want to survive. Their new plan is to rescue the president and hand him over to the government, hoping for a pardon in return. While the Duke and his men are distracted, the couple sneaks into the room where the president is being held. Armed with a silenced gun, they take out Romero and the guards one by one. With the path clear, they free the president and make a break for the top of the World Trade Center, where Snake's glider is waiting. Back in the fighting ring, just as Snake catches his breath, one of Duke's men rushes in with alarming news. The president has escaped. The Duke is furious. He orders every single one of his men to hunt down the traitors and kill them. Chaos erupts in the arena as the gang members scramble to carry out his orders. Seeing his chance, Snake takes advantage of the distraction and slips away. Snake races to the rooftop, just in time to meet up with Brian, Maggie, and the president, but their escape plan falls apart in an instant. Before they can board the glider, a group of prisoners pushes it off the edge, sending it crashing down below. Now, with Duke's army hot on their trail and no way to fly out, the group is forced to flee through the streets. Luckily, Cabby, their old friend, is waiting for them in his taxi. They jump inside, and he speeds off just as the Duke's men close in. As they race through the city, Cabby makes a shocking revelation. He has the nuclear fusion tape. He had secretly traded for it with Romero earlier. The president immediately demands the tape, but Snake holds onto it, knowing it could be his only leverage in this dangerous situation. With only 23 minutes left before time runs out, they speed toward the bridge. They don't have the blueprints for the mines scattered across it, but there's no turning back now. Their only choice is to risk it. But fate isn't on their side. As they drive further onto the bridge, disaster strikes. The taxi hits a mine. The explosion rips through the vehicle, killing Cabby instantly. Though shaken, the rest of the group pushes forward on foot, desperate to reach the containment wall. But the tragedies don't stop there. Brian accidentally steps on a mine and the blast fatally wounds him. As he lies dying, Maggie refuses to leave him behind. Instead, she makes a stand, firing at the pursuing gang members to buy the others time. But the Duke is relentless. He speeds straight toward her, running her over and killing her instantly. Snake and the president keep moving, their final goal now within sight. They reach the containment wall, where government guards are waiting. The president is lifted to safety, but before Snake can follow, the Duke catches up. The two engage in a brutal fight, with Snake already weakened from his previous injuries. It seems like Duke might win, but at the last moment, the president, now safely above the wall, grabs a machine gun and opens fire. Bullets rain down, and the Duke collapses, dead. Finally, Snake is lifted to safety. A doctor rushes over and deactivates the mini explosives in his neck, stopping the countdown just in time. He is finally free. With the mission complete, Snake hands over the cassette tape to the president and walks away. But as the president prepares for a major global summit, something unexpected happens. When the world leaders play the tape, it's not the nuclear fusion data. It's Cabby's mixtape. The entire room is stunned. The president realizes he has been tricked. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, Snake walks away casually, smoking a cigarette. In his hand, he holds the real nuclear fusion tape. With a smirk, he pulls the tape apart, destroying it completely. He had the last laugh all along. And for this to not be your last movie recap, I recommend clicking on the stories on the right to continue having fun. Subscribe and drop a like to return for future uploads. As always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.